Happy Saturday, friends. Good to see you. I am back for another weekly show, and I've got a few comments, a few topics we're going to talk about today. First video is going to be a Darth Dawkins quick video, 5 minutes long, courtesy of Breakfast Tacos or Taco. That's his username over on the Politics and Religion server, or the Politics server, I should say, where he is a mod. He's recorded this one. I think this one's a week or two old. This is a little while ago, but it's context. He's in a room and somebody asks him about the Trump convictions. So it's a brief conversation, but there's a few interesting points that he brings up that are worth poking holes in, because they're pretty good evidence that Darth is gorging on an unhealthy diet of right-wing media, which I think everybody knew about. And then the other video that I'm going to be discussing is one from, I think, at least 2 or 3 weeks ago, from Pine Creek, where he was on Peter Boghossian's show, YouTube something, live show, and Christina Buttons was on there, and I'll get into more context with that when I switch over to it. So I'm going to say hello to everybody here in the chat. Michael Deaton is here. Good to see you, and thanks for the reminder to everybody. Maya is here. Good to see you, Maya. JL Warren, hello. Okay, I've had an 8.5-pound pork butt on the smoker since 11 p.m. last night. My Saturday is set. Yes, that is how you do it. That sounds delicious. Not a complaint, genuine question. I only follow Darth here and Tom's. Is just Darth less active these days? Did he finally put every atheist in his blacklist and ran out of people to talk to? I mean, part of it is that. Part of it is that he won't engage in debates anymore. He won't set up arranged debates, which is at this point, he's notorious enough where he could probably devote most of his time to doing that if he wanted to. He could just schedule kind of planned debates, but instead he just continues to engage in, he goes to smaller rooms, or maybe even moderately sized rooms over in Discord, and just berates people, like same as before. So he's actually, in a way, kind of regressed back to his old days when he was yelling at kids on, what was it? The Microsoft, the Xbox Live chat, when he was playing whatever, shooting tweens in Halo. I should say zapping. I think YouTube doesn't like the word shooting. And now I've just said it twice. Cutlery Duck is back. Good to see you. Let's see. I think it's a combination of Darth actively trying to avoid being recorded and general interest petering out. I think that really is it. I think he's trying to avoid being recorded and covered as much as he is. I've been covering him less, mostly because not that I think that my stuff is all that detrimental to him or damaging in any way, although I have overexposed him and in a sense kind of bored the crap out of my any general audience that would like to listen to something other than that. But his rhetoric's gotten lazier. He's just gotten more and he's actually gotten he's less inclined to have the severe blowouts that he did a while back, but he doesn't seem to really be engaging with a lot of energy anymore. So let's see. Darth starting to show self-awareness and potentially some sense of shame. Oh, he's definitely on his way out. I got a 375 milliliter bottle of faux pain to pour in the toilet in celebration when he goes. Okay, let's see. Coco's is here. Good to see you, Coco's. Good afternoon to you. Let's see here. Rodent. I think Darth isn't online as often because he's not allowed to shut at his phone at the boarding house and has been 86 from Starbucks and McDonald's for abusing their Wi-Fi. I mean, I think there's a very real likelihood that that's happened to him, and it would be hilarious to see, somebody having to go to him, sir, can you stop yelling at non-believers while you're covered in hot mustard and and chicken nugget residue? Just please leave. Let's see. Real question is what's Tom been up to? Has been uploading. He hasn't been uploading Darth or Boss Man Jack vids lately, and I'm kind of worried about him. Not gonna lie. I don't know. I'm not really worried about him. I think everybody has downturns in their output, and Tom has backed way off on trying to record Darth stuff, which, so that's up to him. Plus, he's blocked in a lot of cases, so I don't know if people are sending him stuff or what. But yeah, I just don't think he's interested. So, Brian Stevens is already setting up his bingo card for Darth on Trump conviction. Rigged, Obama, liberals, leftist, Biden, old. We'll see. I think you're pretty close. I don't know if he gets into the Biden old thing. He does mention Biden, I'm sure. Kent Hovens, greetings from the. It's hot in the Ozarks today. It's hot here too, in the Mitten State. It's going to be a warm one today. Darth won't do scheduled formal debates anymore. He's gotten his PP whacked too often. Getting the nut shot. I don't know if I like this one, JL. Another Saturday helping of hot buttery Jeffy Pop. The hot buttery pop part is just not agreeing with me. Thanks, JL. I've only caught DD live 3 times in the last 2 months. He rage quits rather quickly now. Job accomplished. Yeah, he does. And it's weird because he jumps into rooms like this, and then when somebody starts getting even remotely assertive with him, he bails. Jeff's wearing Darth down, confirmed. I think we all are. I think everybody's wearing him down, but I'm doing my part. I think some would say I'm doing an excessive amount for my part. Hashtag Otangelo, who thinks I'm obsessed with him, and Barthologist, who thinks that I'm in love with him. I think that's everybody. Sapir's here. I think I've got everything. What is your ultimate grounding for all possibility and impossibility? Sir, this is a Wendy's. Maybe that's what happened. He just started talking like that even to normal people. I mean, it happens. I've heard people complain like, yeah, I've been spending so much time in these Philoso Bro hangouts on like Discord and stuff. He'll get into arguments with significant others or with parents and be like, that's really a straw man fallacy. Or do you think you can you give that, can you give your complaints to me in a syllogism? Does not go over well with people that you know and care for. Doing great work, Jeff. Thank you, Lord Dunlop, and good to see you. Okay, so let's get into this one here. I'll kind of leave this. I'm gonna shrink myself down so you guys can see who's talking here. But there's Darth right there. I don't know if you can see that. He's right there in the green. And so this is just Darth discusses Trump conviction. So we're gonna get going here. Let's make sure volume is okay. I think everything's right there. Playback is normal. I'm going to play this back at normal speed. So here we go. Usual rules apply. Yell at me if you cannot hear this. I will adjust the volume appropriately. And before we get going, let me read this one from JL. On more than one occasion, I've seen Darth sitting all alone in his Discord room. Sits there for 10 minutes, then leaves when no one joins. Reminds me of Hector Salamanca. Well, JL, you have just given me an idea of new the thumbnails to use when I cover Darth Dawkins. I'm just going to use images of Hector Salamanca, like finger hovering over that bell ringer, drooling out one corner of his mouth. You're not the only one who said that. I think somebody else had said that to me too. I don't know if it was John Fabiano or if it was oh man, maybe it was Taco. Somebody had said the same thing. Like, yeah, or maybe it was you, JL. Maybe you'd said it to me earlier, where it was just like, yeah, he'll just go into his like atheist helpline room or whatever, or, whatever it's called, and it's he'll just sit there and nobody will go in, and then he gets bored, and then maybe he'll poke his whole head into one of these rooms, and somebody will be like, hey, it's Darth. Let me challenge you to something, or let me ask you a question. Then you starts putting his routine and then block, and then if he can't block people, he just bails. So yeah, not great. And I feel like he's been kind of, I don't think he wanted to go back to Discord after the TikTok thing, but he's not active on TikTok at all as far as I can tell, because reaction videos to him, it seems like they died out around March. Because I do a search to see if there was any decent content to cover on TikTok, and there were reaction videos to people responding to him, or that had a brief conversation with him when he was doing a live, and he'd built up enough followers to be able to go live on TikTok. But then somebody had said that he'd gotten banned or he'd gotten suspended because of ableist speech or hate speech or whatever, which I predicted. Everyone, I think, saw that coming, so I'm not patting myself on the back for that. And then I don't think there's been any any remarks about him or any content made in reaction to him since the end of last March. So, yeah, I think he's gone. All right. I think that's just about it. I always thought Darth was like Tony Soprano's mom. Emotionally, yeah. Yeah, right there. Okay, so Tony Soprano's mom. I love that actress. I don't want to do. Well, I like the actor for Hector Salamanca too, but Hector Salamanca, that character is so repellent. Yeah, I think I'll use that. I got to keep that in the back of my mind. Big props to J.L. Warren for reminding me of that. I don't know why I didn't make that connection before. I wanted to shift from Darth Dawkins, from Darth Vader memes to an Emperor Palpatine thing, but I thought that, as far as villainy goes, that's kind of an upgrade. So I always wrestled with doing that, or tried to make like AI images or anything like that, or even using stills. But I still think they're appropriate. I think he's more Palpatine than Darth anyway. He won't be gone for long. He's a junkie for the sense of superiority. I think it's just a matter of time before he finds an avenue, an outlet, a social media platform or something like that he can get into. So yeah. Okay, let's jump into this. I'm going to start playing this now, and I'll shut up. So let's watch. Well, I won't shut up for long. I can't. Here we go.
Since they reject that it is the mind, the purpose, and the plan of God, then what do they have that is identifiable and defensible that ultimately dictates any proposed state of affairs, that what is, can be, or cannot be? Well, the answer is nothing. All they
Don't worry, this doesn't go on for too long.
And when they attempt to answer it, it's laughable. They go, reality, and they don't realize how colossally stupid that answer is.
It feels like they think it's the Democratic Party is their ultimate these days.
Well,
yeah, that's right. Because all atheists are Democrats.
The Democratic Party is pretty much a good example of atheists. Okay.
Yeah, all they're talking about is Trump in all their rooms. It's crazy.
I believe in the last Pew Research poll, the majority of people who vote Democratic and people who are registered Democrats identify as Christians, so yeah, that's not true.
They're like obsessed.
Yeah, and wait till election day. Look, this is what this among the other trial, all corrupt. It's all an attempt of election interference, right?
Yeah. I know. Yeah,
I was listening.
It's not. I mean, these guys keep doing this because they think that, Biden is the Justice Department, which is weird because the guy that they're supporting is actively running in a way that the Justice Department will just be an extension of Trump's litigious inclinations against his enemies. So he's running on a platform of weaponizing the Justice Department while decrying the fact that Biden is weaponizing the Justice Department, which is not real, but that's the claim he's making. Never mind the fact that as far as the New York case went, the federal Department of Justice didn't go after these charges. They could have, but they didn't actually pursue a case against Trump for the violations that he, connected to the New York case, the fraudulent documents, falsifying documents charges. Alvin Bragg was not super excited about doing it until they found more evidence and they had a really good line on a case. They had a stronger case and stronger documentation showing that this was there was enough communication and collusion showing that the falsification of the documents was being done in furtherance of some other crimes, which in New York State is a little weird. It's a little counterintuitive, but it worked. And the jury followed the judge's instructions and they deliberated for 12 hours and they found him guilty. A jury that was picked in voir dire and agreed upon by Trump's counsel and the prosecution. But this is all engineered. All of this, every step of the way, was engineered by a guy that they also believe can't navigate stairs. So,
listening to legal commentary, people who have PhDs in political history, right, or in constitutional law.
No, he's not. Who is he talking to with these kinds of degrees? Somebody with those kinds of degrees had a conversation with Darth Dawkins about politics for a couple of minutes. Darth would probably start yelling at them, and if he couldn't mute and boot them, he'd quit.
And they're pointing out numerous constitutional errors that have been made in this trial.
No, they're not.
Okay.
The hardest thing for me with this is I lost $100 to my brother, who's like a total crazy leftist, because he predicted.
Is he eating pudding? Yes, I'm going to say always. I think he's always eating pudding. He is a big egg salad fan. I remember one time he was talking how much he loved black pepper. He was eating an egg salad sandwich, I think, with a lot of black pepper on it. So maybe maybe he's just always got a mouthful of egg salad sandwich in there. Um, Republicans and Trump campaign using phrases which include noose and guillotine lately. Yeah, of course they are. I mean, why not? Why not double down on that? Notice that the right wing media, like after the State of the Union address, when Biden did a solid job of because he's not a great speech. I don't think he gives great speeches. I think he occasionally gets up some pretty good zingers, but his speeches aren't always the best. In fact, I think they're usually kind of lackluster. But that one was pretty good. It was well written. He did a great job delivering it. And what did they run with? He was jacked up Joe. He was high on drugs. He was, they put compound V in his veins or something like that. Something was up. But the Google searches for Biden being too old to, be in the office or whatever, Biden in old age, like dropped. They just plummeted, and it kind of left the news cycle for a while. Notice after following the conviction, though, that is increasing now. Like there's the video that's been edited deceptively to show Biden wandering away from a photo op. When in actuality he's actually talking to and he's giving a thumbs up to I think it's a parachuting demonstration going on off camera. But the way right-wing media spun it up and put it out there, it was like, oh, well, he's just standing there staring off at, staring at the trees and giving a thumbs up to no one. So yeah, the bullshit is ticking up, and more of it is going to tick up because they're going to have to lean back into he's just too old. I think he's 3 years older than Donald Trump. Donald Trump just celebrated his 78th birthday, and I think Biden's 81. So they're like 2 to 4 years apart, I think. Can Darth name the constitutional errors? Any? No. Maybe he's been talking to a particular constitutional law scholar. He's been talking to, he's been watching more.
He predicted that Trump would get convicted. And
of course, the leftists are salivating like this. Okay.
Well, I was shocked though. Were you shocked? Because I totally.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't shocked.
I think the odds-on favorite for a result was a hung jury, because I think the odds were that the idea was if one person was just a holdout, it would be a hung jury, and that would be it. I don't think anyone. Here's the thing: I don't think anyone thought it was going to be a unanimous decision to convict on all 34 charges. I think that was in the minority. I think most people were kind of leaning towards it could be a hung jury. I think it's more likely to be a hung jury than a unanimous decision on all counts. Maybe somewhere in the middle, they find him guilty on some counts, but not on others. So we'll see. I wasn't shocked. I was pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised that it was as quick as it was. It took them 12 hours. They deliberated for 12 hours. They're like, yeah, I mean, it's unanimous. He's guilty of all 34, and they're felonies. So, although they didn't really establish that, I don't think that's not their job. But looking at the evidence and looking at, that's what they determined. So that's it.
What? Because first of all, the judge is corrupt. Okay.
Right.
He's absolutely corrupt. He charged the jury saying you don't have to have unanimous agreement. Since when do you have that in a jury trial?
So I'll explain this here real quick. The majority report showed clips of Tim Pool chastising multiple guests because he was tired of having to restart streams due to their constant threatening the lives of the left. Yeah, that was a good one. That's happened. Yeah, he went after a guy that's a regular, like on his show, kind of dressed him down, which I thought was inappropriate. He's like dressing the guy down on air for it. It's like, dude, you don't need to do this to this guy. You need to discuss this. Like if he did it live, do it then. And I don't know that he was bringing up a past event. Like you guys need to talk about that in there. And the fact that you have to have that conversation with one of the people that you're working with is sad, but you guys are right wingers. So sometimes things can get a little, violent, and they tend to get the rhetoric tends to get a little bit more violent lately. Darth is talking about, let's pull that back in there.
Great.
Charge the jury saying you don't have to have unanimous agreement. Since when do you have that in a jury trial?
Unanimous agreement on the other charges. So the idea here was they have to agree unanimously that he committed the 34 counts of falsifying business documents. Where they didn't have to have unanimous agreement on wasn't the fact that he did the crimes. It was the fact that it was the basis for the felony escalation of those crimes, because otherwise they're just misdemeanors. And the prosecution had laid out, and this is something that New York law has, it's a little bit unusual for this particular case. They've done this before, and this gets prosecuted this way in other business documents cases. If you can show that the intention behind falsifying the business documents was to further another crime, it rises to the level of a felony. And they gave the jurors the instructions of the 3 crimes that the falsification of the documents was being done in furtherance of. One was tax fraud, and one involved a federal violation of campaign regulations, and the other one was a state level one. So, and I think the state level one had to do with an individual's ability to donate, basically exceeding the cap of what they could donate to a political candidate, which was the, $131,000 loan that Michael Cohen took out to pay off Stormy Daniels to benefit the campaign. That was the violation, I think, on the state law. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. The federal one was a little bit weirder. I think that one was the one that involved like campaign documents or something like that. And then the other one was tax fraud. The way they were handling payments back to Michael Cohen, the way they were handling that. So 3 crimes happening, 3 potential federal crimes going on, and the jurors had to consider one or all 3 in perspective of the falsification of documents. The falsification of the documents was a layup. Everyone knew he did that. Even conservatives were like, oh yeah, if they'd just gone after him for the misdemeanors, this would have been a layup. They would have pled out, and that would have been it. The sticking point to it was that New York law allows the consideration of falsification of business documents in furtherance of other crimes to increase its level from misdemeanor to felony. And that's what made this case tricky. The jurors only really had to be convinced of one of the 3 frameworks. And some of them were probably convinced that it was in furtherance of all 3. The worst thing to come out of Occupy Wall Street was Pim Tool. Yeah, I agree. I didn't notice him in Occupy Wall Street when he started coming online and doing stuff. I never made the connection. I can see bringing up live to show the platform you're addressing it and making it clear to future guests that they can't do this. No, yeah, I can see them bringing it up then, but it's pretty obvious in the clip where Tim Pool is like dressing this guy down just to kind of like, it's a little bit, it comes across as a little bit of a power move. He's asserting his dominance over one of his subordinates, and it had already been dealt with. Now, if you've got a co-host that's a regular and he does that live, he or she says something like that live, then yeah, I mean, yeah, dress them down. They just did it on your show. You're probably going to have to edit it or pull it or, give me a culpa or whatever. Yeah, go right ahead. But from the sounds of the one that I saw, it sounds like they'd already dealt with it. And then he brings it up again just so that he can dress him down in front of his live audience. And it's like, look, if you're going to do that, it would be better to actually have, if you're going to decide on something to broadcast live and you've had this conversation, have that guy come out and apologize on behalf of the channel. I just think the way he handled it was shitty. Hey, Taco, what's up? And thanks for the video, by the way. Good old Trump/Darth Dawkins political discussion here. So,
oh,
yeah, it's great. Did you think he was going to get convicted or no?
Yeah,
I thought it was more likely that it would end in a hung jury, and if not.
Oh, really? Okay, so he wasn't shocked. So if he thought it was more likely to end in a hung jury, then why wasn't he shocked when they found him guilty on all charges?
They would come up with a conviction because it's a corrupt trial. I mean, listen to people who have legal chops. I mean, people who have credentials in this area, and they will tell you that there are so many grounds to overturn this. It's an embarrassment of riches. It's ridiculous. The judge himself is a Democrat donor. His daughter.
I don't think that he is. I think that he's donated to Democratic politicians in the past. His daughter is like a fundraiser or something like that. But again, this is playing into this whole thing. If they're in any way connected with the other political side, they're incapable of doing their job. That's all this is. Well, they're guilty by association. They've been affiliated with at least one Democrat in the past. They donated to Hillary Clinton. They hosted a fundraiser for Democrats before. Their daughter hosted fundraisers for Democrats in the past. Therefore, that judge cannot be counted on to be professional and do his job as a judge. He's just hopelessly misguided by the left. Only the right puts facts in front of feelings. So we know how to separate fact from fiction, and we can divorce ourselves from our political dogma and our ideology to be professional. Like, no, you can't. You're no. If anything, if there's an accusation here going on, in a lot of cases, in the case of like even right wing leaning judges, what we've seen even from like Supreme Court justices who are ideologues, right wing ideologues, is that when it comes to application of the law, in some cases they've been a lot more professional than I think left wing critics have thought they would be. In other cases, they've been absolutely atrocious. But the notion that, because you are of this political ideology, you're incapable of being professional at your job is astoundingly stupid. Because what gets left out is, well, the right doesn't ever have to worry about this. But if a judge out there is in any way, even remotely, tangentially, infinitesimally connected to somebody who is a Democrat, they are too close to being a leftist socialist. They are a danger to the country, and they're incapable of divorcing themselves from their ideology long enough to maintain any kind of professional integrity. That's an interesting claim. They need to justify that. That is telling you everything you need to know about that person and nothing about the individual they're directing those criticisms at.
There is a radical fundraiser for the Democratic Party.
Oh, I didn't know that.
A radical fundraiser. So they hosted a fundraiser, therefore radical. Way to go. So if I host a fundraiser for a libertarian politician, I am a radical libertarian, incapable of divorcing my libertarian ideology from anything that I engage with in my professional life.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to get on discussions of politics. Yeah.
But away he went.
It's not going to work. Okay. This is backfiring on them.
I mean, can't a man just hire a porn star?
So Taka says Darth has been live recently on politics, but I can't edit his brain rot anymore. It would be a pain to try to edit the stuff out because he just meanders now, and it's so much of it is repetitive that Taco knows this now because Taco's probably now in just a short time covering this has probably listened to as much Darth as I have in my entire YouTube channel. You just keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again. You start to fall asleep. You just, it's like, dude, make a new point or say this a different way or come up with a pithier way to express it. Taking a break from a long bike ride to say hello. Hey, good to see you, Nitty. Well, enjoy that bike ride. I hope it's a little cooler there than it is here. I don't know why Didi thinks the judge having donated would be grounds to overturn the jury verdict. The New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct dismissed that complaint. So it's already moot. Yeah, but as far as Darth as an outside observer goes, he's going to continue to bring it up because for them, there's a whiff of conspiratorialism there. Conspiratorial, is that a thing? Conspiracism. And so they're just going to they're going to use anything they can, I think, just to and keep the specter of suspiciousness on that. It says it's so horrible. He just talks meta and refuses to engage with anyone. Yeah, and that's really been the thing that I've noticed lately. Like he's more inclined. It seems like he's more inclined to disengage in these conversations, leave the room, but he's incapable of really. Like if you watch his videos from back in the days when he was on Google Hangouts, he was more inclined to pause and let somebody express a full thought and then go after them. He's lost any patience at all. Like maybe he was faking it then, but he no longer has the patience to even pretend to be listening. He's got to get his speech. He's got to get his talking points out because he's already decided who he's dealing with. The person that he's dealing with is clearly stupid, clearly deranged, just doesn't understand the truth. Darth is there to save them. And if they don't understand that, they can go F themselves. That's his attitude. So.
To have sex with and live in peace.
I don't think you understand the nature of the charges here. Okay.
That's interesting. The guy's bringing up do you think it's okay that he did that? And Darth's like, no, I don't think you understand the nature.
Well, I didn't say that. That's what
the charges were violation of some campaign finance law. I mean,
falsification of business records per New York state law. The campaign finance stuff is, I even got this wrong initially when I started covering this. The connection to the campaign finance thing was one of three other crimes in which the jury was being asked to, okay, we know that he committed the falsification of the documents. Prosecution is alleging that he committed the falsification of the documents in furtherance of one or all of these three other crimes, which is what raises the falsification of documents from misdemeanor to felony. And these are the three of them. You might be convinced that he's kind of engaging them for the furtherance of all three, but you really only, in order to convict, you really need to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed the falsification of business documents in furtherance of at least one. That was the lack of unanimity that the judge allows. New York state law allows that in the prosecution of these kinds of falsification of business document charges. And that's what Darth is not understanding.
It's just absurd.
Using campaign money to pay her.
Right.
It wasn't so much the money that went, the chain of money, from what I can tell from the case, isn't so much the direction of the funds from Cohen to Daniels. It was the direction of the money being paid from Trump and company, mostly from Trump and the campaign back to Cohen. Because a lot of the stuff going on there, like, I mean, the reason for Cohen's initial payment to Stormy Daniels was to benefit the campaign. That was what the prosecution alleged. And it sounds like at least some of the jurors agreed with that, in the sense that, from what I understand, like that New York, the New York law would be, that was essentially a $131,000 gift from Cohen directly to the Trump campaign, which is an amount past the federal limit. You're only allowed to give like $2,700, $2,750. So I mean, the issue wasn't the fact, like, if Trump had directly paid her $131,000, this would be no problem. The fact that Cohen stepped up and volunteered to do this in some weird way to try to say, well, if I do that, there'll be no direct chain of funds from Trump to Stormy. So they can't say that you'll try to make the cover up, even though it's legal to offer it is legal to offer somebody money in exchange for an NDA. That wouldn't necessarily be bad, but it would look bad. So Cohen was like, well, I'll pay him and there'll be no connection, even though Cohen was his lawyer and fixer. Stupid, right? But that's where things got complicated, and that's where the violations of laws started to occur, because then the way they attempted to pay him back started getting into things like, okay, having it done this way potentially violates New York state campaign laws, federal campaign laws, and federal tax laws. You don't understand the nature of the charges here. He paid a hooker to stay silent and falsifies the business records to conceal the payoff. It's textbook criminal activity. Yeah. People think a woman sending work emails from a private server is worse than raw dogging a porn star and paying hush money with campaign funds. I'm done with all of them. Exactly. Yeah. She needed to be locked up. Well, I mean, just compare that with what he's alleged too. She used a private server instead of a government server for certain emails. So we need to lock her up because she's a danger to national security. He had documents that are not cleared to be read outside of a SCIF, which is basically like the federal national security equivalent of a Faraday cage. And he had them next to his toilet at Mar-a-Lago. But, lock her up.
By the way,
I didn't say that he was being charged with prostitution.
Earth to Pastor, do you know who Michael Cohen is?
His lawyer, his ex-lawyer.
Yeah. Do you know that he admitted that he was lying on the stand? He admitted.
This is brilliant. So before listening to the rest of this, keep in mind that Michael Cohen already served 3 years for these same charges, the falsification of business records. So Darth is bringing up to him like, hey, you know who Cohen is, right? Did you know that he lied on the stand? Or he doesn't lie on the stand. He admitted on the stand that he stole from Trump.
To stealing like $30,000.
His lawyer, his ex-lawyer.
Yeah. Do you know that he admitted that he was lying on the stand? He admitted to.
He didn't lie on the stand, and he didn't admit to committing perjury. He actually confessed that he had stolen money from Trump.
Stealing like $30,000 from Trump.
What does that have to do with anything I said?
It destroys his credibility as a witness. He was the star witness.
Yeah, he's the star
Yeah,
witness.
but what does that have to do with anything I said?
I don't think you I don't think you understand that when it comes to jury trials, that if a witness has been shown in part to be untrustworthy,
In the fact that they admitted that they stole from somebody.
right? And it has to be what's the word, the legal word I'm looking for? It has to be a material, right?
Mhm.
Like if a woman, if somebody came in and testified that a star witness lied about her age, right? As women do sometimes, okay?
But only women, apparently.
Mm.
That's not material, okay? But in jury trials, okay, in the United States, if a witness, especially a star witness, can be shown to have a pattern of lying, okay, when deliberating,
He went to jail for 3 years. He confessed to a great deal of what he committed in exchange for helping prosecutors then pursue Trump. Not only did he admit a ton of crap before he was convicted and served his 3-year bit, but he was also honest and admitted that he stole from Trump. So he's a thief, but he's not a liar.
jury members completely can disregard their testimony.
They cannot. So that's the bit right there. Let's
Jury members have a pattern of lying, okay?
They haven't established that they haven't established there's a pattern of lying. If they've established that there's a pattern of lying coming from Cohen, that means he has a tendency to perjure himself, which means there's a huge risk of having him on the stand. He doesn't have. I don't think he was ever convicted, even accused of perjury. So he admitted to stealing. He didn't lie about stealing. So he wasn't. He hasn't established that at all.
When deliberating, jury members completely can disregard their testimony.
They cannot. You can disregard what the judge tells you can disregard. Disregarding in the cases of a jury, you will be told, you will be given instructions by the judge about what you can disregard. If he doesn't tell you to disregard it, you can consider it. Now, the jury is responsible for taking the testimony into consideration and weighing it against the other evidence, so they can determine whether or not they think what's being said is truthful, or maybe it's a little suspect or something like that. But unless the judge has told them to disregard it, they can consider it. This does not make any sense. There's no point here. He's talking. You should know this if you've watched Law and Order.
Okay. So anyway, that's enough with that.
I just was confused as to what that was in reference to.
Okay, is English your first language, Pastor? I said,
no.
That's enough of the politics.
Oh,
I was just confused
so they have to stop talking about politics when Darth says so.
as to what that was in reference to is all.
Okay.
Yeah, like, do you really expect Trump to feel like he should have been convicted of all those charges? Like, really? You really feel that way? Like, expected him to?
Okay, that's the first server mute. Okay. Since they reject.
He just server mutes her because she's like, "Hey, wait, do you really think that Trump thought that he deserved that?" Is Darth going Ray Comfort? I mean, Darth has always been Ray. It's Ray Comfort covered with. It's Ray Comfort who's been jacked up with a lot of adrenaline and McDonald's breakfasts. Enough of politics. It's politics server after all. Exactly. I don't want to talk about politics here on the politics server. He is in an atheist presuppositional apologetics room or something like that. I can't remember what Taco calls this particular room that Darth's going into, or the one that Taco went into, because Darth had mods in this one. So maybe this was his atheist helpline room. Well, Darth is such a loser. He really is. Yeah. This is remarkably dumb. So yeah, that's it for that. Let's jump out of there. Let's get on to something a little lighter, maybe. So this one's going to get a little touchy. So here is Pine Creek having a conversation with, let's blow that back up again. So like I said, he was on Peter Boghossian's YouTube channel. They were doing a live thing together, and Christina Buttons is on there. So I don't know when this happened. This was an atheist room. No idea how he had mods or why. That's interesting because he claims he's server muted that one person, that last person. So that's interesting. Yeah, brace yourselves, folks. Oh Lord, Pine Creek. Yep. Here we go. Taking a trip down to the creek. So yeah, the only context that I know, this a few weeks back, Doug was on Peter Boghossian's. In fact, I think this was just a few days before, like the weekend before, or right after the Trump convictions were announced. So he's on here, and Christina Buttons is on here. For context, you all know who Pine Creek is. Christina Buttons used to work for the Daily Wire. And I don't know what her real content was on there, but she lately has gotten her head into this whole thing where she thinks the number of people who detransition. So this is a trans issue, just in time for Pride Month. I'm going to try to be careful with this one because, this is always a touchy subject. And YouTube is watching, and they really don't like this issue. Well, depending on how you approach it, but, she seems to think that the number of people that are detransitioning is much higher than what we're being told. And so she's on here. In fact, she did some kind of detransition survey, I think back in 2023. If anyone who watches this channel has any information on anyone who looked over that detransition survey of hers and her colleagues, I would be interested to see. I tried finding it. I wasn't able to really find anything, and I'm thinking it might be because she's small enough potatoes, and it's kind of a goofy enough survey where they didn't even really pay it any attention. The fact that I couldn't find anything on it other than her stuff, and most of it was social media posts or blog posts. So that always raises a red flag when no one has really kind of like taken a crack at the statistics, the methodology, that kind of thing. Hey, Spooky's here. Good to see you, Spooky. So that's where we're going to go with this. I have not watched this one yet. So this is my first time watching it. So let's see what happens here. I'm not too familiar with Christina Buttons. I remember a year ago or so when the fallout from her leaving, she left the Daily Wire. She claimed it was because of, basically it was a bad work environment. I think she blamed Matt Walsh, his behavior and his attitude specifically, cited that as one of the main reasons why she was leaving, because he's a dick. And she's been out on her own. She has a Substack and all that kind of stuff, and she's been doing this kind of stuff. So she had a conversation with Vosh a year ago, and I have kind of issues with some of Vosh's content too. But I don't think I even watched the entire interview because I'm not really all that interested in either. But let's see what Pine Creek, where he goes with this. So this is about 4 minutes long. So what could it hurt?
But Christina, I had a question for you that I wrote down while you were talking, because you've worked a lot with detransitioners, right? So this is completely a new topic.
I don't know that she's worked a lot with detransitioners. I think that she writes a lot about detransitioners. Her operating hypothesis is that there's more of them than the medical industry, the medical professionals will admit to. There's a cabal. They're fudging the numbers. That's basically what I've seen from her.
Yeah.
From your conversations with...
Sorry, Spooky. He said he's been here a while, but I was yapping at stuff. That's what I do. I yap at stuff.
Detransitioners, would you say that a lot of detransitioners would say now that being trans was a belief that was based on some type of socialization, or that
Red alert.
they would say now after detransitioning that it was still some type of biological something?
That's a great question, because that's what I focus on. No, I mean, I did a survey of detransitioners last year that I'm working on getting published. And one of the most important findings, I think, from that survey was that 85% said that their healthcare provider conceptualized their trans identity to them as a medical condition that required medical treatment or a biological aspect of them that they had no control over. And I think under when like the power dynamics between like your healthcare provider and you, a patient, many of these people were a teenager when they transitioned or a very young adult. Like, of course, they're going to listen to their doctor. They did.
Okay, let's rewind that and go over that carefully, because she's making kind of a bonehead move here.
Aspect of them that required medical conceptualize their trans identity. 85% said that their healthcare provider
Okay, so in the survey,
85% said that their healthcare provider conceptualized their trans identity to them as a medical condition that required medical treatment or a biological aspect of them that they had no control over. And I think
so let's deal with that point first. If you're talking with your doctor, right? If you go in to see a medical professional and you provide them with symptoms, their job is to try to figure out, they need to diagnose you, right? It doesn't do them any good to try to diagnose you with something that they can't categorize. So there's going to be limitations in terms of what medical terminology and what medical science can do in terms of these interactions. So what she's trying to say is like, well, 85% of these people said that their doctors considered their trans issues this way. Okay. One thing that you have to consider from the perspective, because we're not, I mean, in this case, we're talking about how medicine is going to treat people when they're going into, there's probably a lot of room for improvement. But one of the things that they're looking at is whether or not this is some kind of there's a biological element to this that is beyond the patient's control. For the purposes, and I think the reasons that medical science is looking for that is to distinguish that from, say, something that might have something more to do almost entirely with either psychiatric or mental health care. So to me, this is just the doctor trying to like figure out, okay, where do we categorize? I'm hearing this patient's symptoms. Where do we categorize what's going on with them? You know, is it, as a medical professional, am I thinking this is purely mental? Am I thinking this is all physical? Is it somewhere in between? To what extent? And then she goes into this.
When, like the power dynamics between like your healthcare provider and you, a patient, many of these people were a teenager when they transitioned or a very young adult. Like, of course, they're going to listen to their doctor. They did. I would do the same thing in that position. But no, like there is no real robust empirical evidence that supports like a biological basis for an innate kind of gender identity.
I don't know that that's true. I don't know how controversial it is, but Robert Sapolsky has cited physical evidence that there's issues, that there are biological markers for some of the people that come out as trans. I don't know if that's true I don't know that it's true for everybody. I don't think he would admit it either, but it's something that they've observed. The idea that the doctor is identifying this is not equivalent. What she's saying here is not equivalent to the doctor telling them how their trans identity works. I don't think she's gotten far enough along with this to do this. This seems kind of weird because it seems like she's implying like, okay, well, if 85% of these people surveyed said, I sat down with my doctor, he explained my trans issues as this, and this. So that is what my trans issues are. And so I ran with it because that's what they said. And I was young and I was impressionable. So this just seems to be her kind of like implicitly pushing the argument that like, look, doctors are in a position to, with their big degrees and their big brains and their big words, to talk a kid inadvertently or intentionally into transitioning. They're impressionable enough that they're going to run with it. As soon as the doctor declares that, oh, well, there's something, this is what I think is going on and it's physical, you can't help it, and so you're trans, therefore that's it. End of story. Oh, okay. I'm not buying this. I'm really not buying how that exchange goes on. I don't know about you, how many doctors that you've talked to, but there have been plenty of times I've trusted some doctors with some information I've been completely unaware of. I'm like, oh, really? That's the thing. And there have been other doctors where I've been like, I'm going to call shenanigans on that. Thank you very much for the 2 quid, Spooky. Thank you for that.
A lot of them now will say that they were either misdiagnosed with gender dysphoria or that they did have gender dysphoria, but it resolved. But no, I think
okay, now she's kind of conflating a couple of things just implicitly. Notice now she's talking about gender dysphoria. The gender dysphoria thing and trans are separate things.
a lot of them, most of them feel very betrayed by the medical establishment because
The 85% of the people that she surveyed, whom did she survey?
they were lied to about the nature
To whom was the survey given?
of their condition, and
Would
now
you
they're left with
characterize
the
it?
consequences.
Would you characterize it as a false belief?
I wonder if Doug's got an agenda here. This is the second time he's asking. I really want you to commit to this one way or the other. Would you say that it's a false belief?
Being
Yeah.
trans?
Well, I mean, this is how trans is conceptualized to people today. That it's because of
Wait, whoa. Trans is being conceptualized at people? So an individual that comes to you and expresses the issues around their gender identity, they had that beaten into them. Methinks that Christina Buttons has just internalized the notion that this is an ideology that someone internalizes and then reacts to, as opposed to somebody reacting to their own gender identity and attempting to express that and then being told they've been what? Mesmerized? Bamboozled?
the success of the gay rights campaign, the Born This Way campaign, where I would say, like, yeah, I think gay people are born that way, but it doesn't apply to trans. Like, a trans identity is something that people adopt, and usually after making social or medical.
I want to read this one from Stephanie. What Christina just said was absolutely full of shit. There may be differences in the size of one very small area of the brain that may affect gender identity. But what she is doing is, and Doug does constantly, is saying trans people are mentally ill. Yeah. I mean, if not, if she's not willing to commit to the expression, they're mentally ill, they're gullible. They've been tricked by a medical professional because they went and they had these questions, and then a medical doctor said, oh, well, you can't help that. It has something to do with this small area of your brain, or there's a biological marker for it. Therefore, you're locked in. Like, okay. Here's the trick. I would like to know, out of the people that she surveyed, maybe their general provider said this. Did the general provider then say, you know what you ought to do? You ought to consider going to a counselor, somebody who specializes this. Talk about this for a while. See if see about exploring this to see what they, right? So you can explore these feelings, explore what's going on here, and see if they can kind of help you, get to the bottom of this. Because if you're confused about it and you have questions, the best way to do that is to, talk to somebody, who maybe does have experience with other people who have been going through the same things that you have, and can help you, kind of, check yourself if you're worried about that, if you think that's what you need. Not going to the doctor to have the doctor tell you whether you're trans or not, which it seems like Christina is saying is happening. Right? They're going there and saying, I think I'm trans. The doctor's like, you sure are. And that's it. And then they go along with that. And then they realize, oh, no, I'm not trans. That doctor lied to me. And this has happened to 85% of the people that Christina Buttons surveyed. I smell something fishy there. Jefferson, there's a video where she goes over her survey, but she apparently has pulled her survey from her Substack because the people she surveyed are members of special groups like NGLF. What is NGLF? I apologize. I'm not aware of that, that particular one. If doctors want profits, then they need to be diagnosing conditions that require tons of scans and expensive drugs. Yeah, Nicola's brought this up before. If there's a profit-oriented conspiracy, they need to explain how this squares in places where doctors don't get paid based on procedures or number of patients. Exactly. And as far as I know, I don't even know in some cases if a doctor's working for a major field, a major hospital, that this really works in any favor for them if they're diagnosing or aiding this. This idea that like, well, the more trans patients you get, the more money you rack in. Like, no.
Medical steps in order to be perceived as opposite sex.
NGLF is New Gay Liberation Front, an anti-trans biphobic hate group. Good Lord. That's a thing? Holy shit. What a terrible group of people. Exactly. The treatment these assholes recommend is conversion therapy. We've tried that. It does not help the individual, but neither of these people care about the individual. Yeah, they don't. This isn't about that. This is about Christina kind of like Christina, Peter, and Pine Creek fapping around in this area of like, well, we need to really address this as a political and a social issue, because what are we going to do in terms of, and it's like, okay, Christina, if you're talking about like an approach to like social medicine or some kind of like public medical concern, we're not a great country for that, because you're pretty much on your own when it comes to medicine. So, and if you are internalizing the notion of, here's the two primary problems, I'll get off on a little rant here, side rant. The two primary problems that I've seen identified to me by people who are trans, people like Stephanie Helms and others, has been this. Number one, the biggest issues with dealing with trans in U.S. discourse. The two biggest problems are, one, making the personal political, right? And two, basically looking to others to describe what trans is rather than talking to trans people themselves, excluding trans people from the conversation about trans people, right? Those are the two biggest issues. The one that I find the most problematic, they're both incredibly problematic, but the first one is interesting because making the reason, if you listen to these people carefully, the way they justify making the personal into something political about trans is the same way they did when it came to homosexuality in the past. You talk about it like, we need to talk about this as a society because insert scary thing X group does or is assumed to do. So the assumption was with homosexual people that they're grooming your kids. They are gay, and they are going to get that gay and infect your kids with it. They're going to take it and use it on your kids. We can't have that. So we as a society need to figure out what we're going to do about that, even though it can be established that that is not a thing. But they run with it anyway. And people miss that implied motivation behind, like, well, we need to talk about these. We're not going to address the notion that we don't understand what sexual orientation is when it comes to homosexual people. What we want to talk about is that what we think is a threat to the rest of the people around them, even though there isn't one. We just think there is. And it's based on reactions grounded in disgust, spite, trauma, ignorance, all these other things. Take your pick. It's a grab bag of insanity. The trans issue has been the exact same thing. Rather than actually going to them and talking to them about this or treating it as a personal issue, they want to say, no, it is a public issue because trans women are going into women's sports. Well, they're women. Of course they would be in women's. Well, that's a problem for whatever reason, right? This is a threat to society. It's challenging notions of fairness, et cetera, et cetera. Like, even though it's not, they just insert that that's what it's going to be. So the threat is there. Trans women are using public restrooms designated for real women. Again, we get to talk about it because they're a threat. So the only reason that you get to help yourself, I'm guilty of this too, from the beginning, of talking about trans people and homosexual people from this perspective, because you end up accepting the implied narrative justification from the other side that there is a threat to deal with, when the real thing that you should have been doing is stopping them right at the gate and being like, I need you to tell me what the threat is and why you think it is a threat. I need you to justify that basic assumption before we move forward. Because as far as I can tell, as far as a person's sexual orientation goes, it's none of my business. As far as a person's gender identity goes, that's only my business if they want to share that and make that, share their business with me. That's it. But this is the constant thing that we have happening here, right? And Christina is like, well, no, the real issue that we need to talk about is that the medical industry, the medical professionals are so goofed up on this that you have this increasingly high or hiddenly high number of people that detransitioned, that regretted it, that's not being reported on. They're not telling you the secrets. They're not telling you the real story. But she hasn't justified what the story. She hasn't justified it. She claims she has a survey out here. Nicola's reporting she's even removed it from Substack because it's taken some heat because the representatives of it might have a bias in terms of the way they're representing their views in her survey. And as far as I can tell, there is nothing close to being in any way statistically rigorous that is approaching her work. So, and from what I can tell, the last stuff that was statistically rigorous shows a regret rate of around 1%, 1.5% at the highest. So yeah, this is just goofiness. But let's play out the rest of this and go from there. Jay, hey, welcome to the show. He says, I saw a clip where Bill Maher said that it's no wonder people voted for Trump, given trans individuals in sports, like a president would regulate that. Exactly. Yeah, it's bonkers. Like Biden is too incompetent to handle a flight of steps, but he's actively manipulating the culture towards approval of trans people, which guys like Bill Maher and Pine Creek Doug and a lot of crusty, dusty people like myself in my age bracket and up are like, nope, I'm not going to accept that. We're just going to reject it. That regulation is expressly stated in Project 2025. No ifs, ands, or about. Yeah, there isn't. Yeah, 2025 is like actively transphobic. Just nope. We're not gonna accept this woke agenda. We're gonna pass laws and it's like, okay. If any of you have not read up on Project 2025, I should do one on that because there's the House Democrats are trying to do something. I need to read more about that. They're trying to make a push against the what's in that little agenda. It's dog shit.
But gender dysphoria is a psychiatric condition with a very high rate of desistance.
Gender dysphoria is a psychiatric condition, but it is separate from trans identity. Like that's why it's called a dysphoria.
And that
okay,
changed.
But if there's like trans activists listening right now, they're throwing up in their mouth just like Peter was just recently. Because they say, no, it's 1% or lower of detransitioners, people who regret.
Yeah, the best statistics that we have show that that's what it is. But because Pine Creek is so anxious to have that disproven, to help the narrative he's decided must be the case, he's clinging to Christina Buttons' narrative that, no, I have a survey that shows 85% of people are detransitioning. That's not you're not thinking rigorously about these measurements. You're cherry picking.
Regret.
Those studies are methodologically flawed, and
which ones? Because meta studies on those studies have confirmed that they've been fine.
They are studying an entirely different cohort than most people are concerned about today.
Are they studying people with gender dysphoria? Are they surveying people who are just trans? I haven't heard anything from her that indicates to me she understands the distinction. That there are trans individuals who may have experienced dysphoria but aren't dysphoric now, right? And obviously some transition therapy is the part of that, right? Gender dysphoria will desist if you get the correct treatment, and that can include social transitioning. It can be HRT. It can include any spectrum of those. It depends on the individual patient. It's an individual decision guided with help of their doctors, not determined by a politician. Like, well, I think this is fake, so we're just gonna say it's illegal to be trans. Report to this clinic over here.
Studying like adults on a completely different model of care rather than teens and young adults under the gender affirmation model of care. So those studies are completely useless. They say nothing about the current cohort that people are concerned about. There was like a comprehensive.
I think that's bullshit right there. The vast majority of people are not concerned with trans people. I'm just going to say that right now. They're not. They probably don't know a single trans person. There's a very good chance they've never even met one. They are not concerned about the people. They're concerned about the issue, right? And they get whipped into these issues, just like I am. I'm guilty here too. Talking about this issue in lieu of actual trans people, because they want to turn it into a political whipping boy, in essence. They want to turn this into a way to talk about where the culture is going, and we need to steer the culture in a different direction, or whatever. You can see this with Doug, especially, right? Like, there needs to be some shame involved in this, or they need to snap out of it somehow. They need to be a man, which is weird because he doesn't talk about trans men who are being a man. So I just, none of this is really doing any good. And the fact that, like, well, I'm really concerned about these people. I don't think that you are. I think that you're concerned about a narrative. I think a lot of us are. I think it's easy for us to get preoccupied with a narrative and then confuse that for genuine concern of other people that we don't understand. We don't have real firsthand experience of what their struggles are. And then we talk about them in the abstract in order to engage in some kind of political game of tennis, verbal tennis.
Medical review of medical records recently in the last couple of years that found like 30% of teens and young adults discontinued hormone use after about 4 years, which is much, much higher than 1%. And this is the actual cohort that people are concerned about.
Sent you something on Discord that summarizes all of this. Thank you, Nicola, for sending me that. I'll describe it this way. It's a meme of a little cartoon character, hands on hips, scowling, but with an obvious erection. Perfect. This is a good point too. There's a very good chance that they do know a trans person, but they don't know they were trans. That's true too. I think there was a post that was on the Transpositions Discord. I think you posted it, Stephanie, from I can't remember the name. I just read it last night from an individual saying, like, you know, if you do successfully transition, no one's going to notice yet. You know, and as far as these people are concerned, like, if that works, then they're fine with it, right? The issue is like, oh, I just don't want to wrestle with it mentally, and now something has to be done politically. Like, no. People have been taking care of themselves with this for a while. What they'd rather you not do, if you're really concerned about it, don't bring this issue up and then hand it over to somebody like Ted Cruz to legislate against. That's not going to make the issue any better. Thank you for pointing that out, Stephanie. They can't always tell. Trust me. Yes, true enough. But at the same time, I think there is such a, I mean, trans people represent a very small percentage of the population. And if you have somebody you may have somebody who's trans, but has not begun transitioning yet, you know, even socially. And if these people aren't aware of it, you know, they just, it's kind of out of sight. The only time they've dealt with this has been through what's been presented to them in the media and what's coming across to them in forums like this that Doug's participating in. Or if they're listening to me, you know, yammer about their commentary and reaction. So, and I think in that case that, you know, really colors the issue, mostly in a negative way. I think even if, like, I mean, I always think about this too. Even if I bring this up, if I'm trying to make as positive a claim as I can about it, there's something to be said about the fact that, like, you know, I'm commenting on this because you can't stop these folks from, like, yammering about this and trying to turn this into. The thing that bothers me the most about it is they'll use this as a way to justify other regressive political takes, because implicit within the motivation behind this is an enormous amount of just internalized conservative bullshit. And if they can get away with doing this, if they can get away with making some kind of bête noire, as it were, out of trans people, like they did with gay people, and they lost, then they feel like once they do that, like, they can claim that we are the people that politically can identify the real threats to our society. And that's one of them right there. And because you want to facilitate them or help them or coddle them, as Doug would say, you're not fit to be not only are you not fit to be in a position of leadership or even helping to to administer the state or private enterprise or whatever, you're part of the problem. You're an enemy of the people. This kind of reactionary thinking is the thing that really bothers me. The fact that they're targeting trans people explicitly now is just because they've had to shift to the one letter in the LGBTQ acronym that they can denigrate the highest. They dislike all of the others, but the trans one is the one that they can misrepresent the easiest because it confuses the majority of other people so much.
So
Yeah,
the journalists, they keep repeating the lie that it's, a very, very small proportion, but the truth is, like, we don't know. The detransition rate is unknown because gender clinics in the United States are.
But you did a survey that showed that 85% of people disagree. So if you don't know, then why are you representing these numbers now? Well, my survey found that 85% of people felt that they were lied to by their, like,
are not keeping track of the data.
Okay.
So we have no idea, really.
But Christina,
So we have no idea, really. So what was the point of even talking about this? What was the point of Christina Buttons having her and her colleague doing a detransition survey? Well, I think that their survey, I think it's been nicknamed that, but it's like a rate of regret survey. Oh, we don't really know, but when we did a survey, 85% of people said that this is, they were disappointed. Okay. So Doug cut it there. We just don't know. Okay. So what do we do then? Do we assume then that it's closer to 85%, or do we assume that the better data that shows a regret rate of 1.5%? Because Doug he's laughing at that, like, oh, I have to throw up in my mouth over that. That's just lunacy. It's got to be higher than 1%. Why does it have to be higher than 1%? This is just like, I mean, I hate to do this. I hate to bring out the philosophy point, but that's like an argument from incredulity. Doug can't fathom why somebody would go there. They've got to regret it, right? They can't possibly be happy that way, according to Doug. So this is where it's important, I think, to understand, like, if you want to be dead inside, as Doug advocates for people, be more dead inside. Doug can't be dead inside about this issue because this is incredibly emotional for him. Right? He claims he gets into these issues because it triggers his dopamine, right? And if he's feeding that, if he's following that, that's an emotional thing. He's not doing this because he's dead inside. If he did, he'd just present raw statistics, or he'd agree with the better numbers that show rate of regret around 1.5%, maybe 2% if you want to round up, just to make sure nobody thinks it's too small. That 2% is still too small for Doug. And then if you ask him, why is it too small for you? His only answer, I just can't imagine that it would be that small. Why can't you imagine that? Because I can't imagine anyone would be happy that way. Why not? I wouldn't be happy that way. Well, that sounds like you're projecting your feelings onto other people. It also makes me wonder if maybe Doug would be happy that way, and he needs to convince himself he would not be. And people used to do this to quit smoking. They would just constantly remind themselves of how disgusting it is. They really wanted one. They loved the flavor. They even liked the smell. I hate the smell of cigarettes, but I loved it. I loved smoking. I genuinely liked the taste, especially natural tobacco. And when I smoked, the more, it didn't matter if it sickened me. After about 30, 40 minutes of not smoking, I went right back to it. And it took a couple of medical near miss emergencies before I realized, like, hey, this is killing me. And that was enough to kind of scare me away from doing it. Never went back. Now, there have been other things in my life where I've had to actually tell myself, like, look, they're delicious, but you're going to feel like crap if you overdo it, like donuts or booze. Booze being a big one. Overdo it a little bit, you'll feel like crap. The older you get, you feel like crap for longer. So it's like, do you really want to pay money to feel good for a couple of hours and then feel like crap for 3 days? Doesn't seem like a great idea. You can kind of talk, but you can provide reasons for that. This seems like Doug is trying to do the same thing. I'm not trying to psychologist too much, but it does seem like I'm not trying to say, like, he who smelt it dealt it kind of thing. But if you are engaging in this, and Doug pretends to be this sort of rational, detached observer of the entire thing, but then is engaging in something that to me is clearly obvious, like just an argument from incredulity. I can't understand why anybody would be happy that way. I have to question his lack of imagination and his lack of empathy, which he admits he actively thinks that people need to, like, the being dead inside isn't about not engaging in your dopamine and feeding your dopamine to go after hot button issues for shits and giggles. It's about suppressing your empathy so that you don't care about anybody and you don't want to engage in anything that requires any sacrifice on your part or any kind of emotional give and take, right? I think that's maybe what he's doing. So, okay, I probably wandered around too much with that, but found her 30% stopped in 4-year study. She neglects that the study counts discontinuation as including people not being able to financially maintain prescription. Yeah. That's a big one. In fact, that's huge. So on top of not really understanding the psychology behind this, the physiology behind this, the medical science behind this, the medical terminology behind this, the medical administration that's going on with this, you're doing things where you have individuals with health insurance that will prevent them from doing either they lose their insurance or they lose the type of insurance they had before. They're no longer covered. They can't afford to stay on the medication that they were on before, so they discontinue. Well, that's a rated detransition right there. So I agree with her at the last. Well, we really don't know. Well, we can't know if you're bundling multiple categories of individuals into one and saying, well, they must have regretted it. I bet Doug would love to hear that. Even though, like, well, how many of them regret the process because the process got derailed? Or don't regret the process. They just regret that they couldn't continue it because their insurance was stupid. Regret rate from gender affirming mastectomy, too low to study adequately. This is from JAMA Network. So thanks for that link. Yeah, I've heard that too. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that that is so low that it in the category, because this is one of the things that I think comes up pretty frequently for some. It came up with the issue of the girl in California that's suing Kaiser Permanente. The right wing made a big thing. Well, they did a double mastectomy on her when she was too young, and now she regrets it. And it's like, and they're doing this to girls all over the country. Like, no, they're not. No, they're not. And on top of it, the rate of regret for that procedure is too low to study. It feeds his dopamine fix until someone jams him up in his live chat, and then he gets annoyed. Dopamine fix denied. Yeah, that's kind of it. He has special information. He's cracked the conspiracy. That feels good. Yeah. Doug seems so overconfident in his opinions that it's a red flag, that he's conflicted on how he feels about them, in my humble opinion. Yeah. Yeah. Take me to Flavor 10. I probably shouldn't have started talking about cigarettes. Nope. Can I? Yes. I can't do weed. I got to be really careful about weed. The Transpositions Discord has a repository of over 30 peer-reviewed papers on the subject covering a wide range of issues affecting transgender individuals. Yes, they do. So if you have access to that, I recommend it. I won't post a link to invite because it's not mine, but I imagine Stephanie will, or others as appropriate, but that is a good source. I need to read more of the sources that have been in there. I've been reading the general chat more, and that's been pretty enlightening. And I'm hoping to get my hands on Judith Butler's new book. Jefferson is wise but grumpy. Grumble. I do grumble a lot. Yeah. Thank you for calling me wise. I don't consider myself wise. It's kind of like pancakes. They start off really strong, but by the end, you're fucking sick of them. Yeah. Well, pancakes are like that for me within like 3 bites. They smell great. They look great. I'm like, take a bite. Oh, take a second bite. This was a mistake, Unfortunately, I'm not the same way with hash browns. Hash browns are like cocaine for me. It was a study of people using military healthcare, which took something of a hit when it came to approving coverage for gender affirming care. I remember that one because that was one that Doug cited in a previous video. And when you looked into it, it was called out because the rate of detransition, the rate of people that just stopped it, they were no longer on medical insurance or the military health insurance. They didn't track them to find out if they remained off any medical insurance and therefore couldn't get the treatment, or if they just shifted to private health insurance and the private health insurance picked up their treatment. They didn't bother to follow up with that. So this rate of detransition or rate of cancellation of therapy ended when their military health coverage ended. And so that study took a massive hit in that direction too. Lupron, aka puberty blocker, one dose, $960 retail. Good God. Not a sample of trans people, a sample of trans people receiving U.S. military health coverage. Right, exactly. Yeah. One of the studies that did the same thing, they were looking at people that were getting TRICARE and something else, military provision going back into the 90s, was just looking at rates of trans care for military soldiers and dependents. And then it just cut off as soon as their coverage stopped. I'm waiting for when the argument about gender gets tired and worn out. Then they change tactics to saying trans are taking jobs from cis. Wait, that actually might be a thing. Well, no, I don't think it's ever going to. I think the reason why this one is as hot and bothered as it is because this is sort of the final. Well, no, it's not. After this will be transhumanism. You know, if we start getting genomics that allows people to start getting, retroactive genetic engineering to replace certain human weaknesses, just have it encoded. So, I can see in the dark, or, hey, I'd like claws, or the olfactory senses of a bloodhound or something like that. They'll be freaking out about that because that'll be a middle finger to God. So, all right, folks, I think I'm going to end it there. Thanks to everybody in the live chat. Just wait, a trans man will be a cop and they'll start saying they're unfit because of steroids or some shit. That has happened. Not for law enforcement. But God, where did that? I thought this has already come up in some. I'll have to try doing some Googling to find that. Something very similar to that I thought was cropping up. Transhumanism is going to blow all these silly gender transition arguments to pieces. It's true. I think so. I'd like to be bioluminescent. I mean, it would help. I mean, especially with what you do. I mean, you're in sailing. You ever need to be identified floating in the water, you glow in the dark. It's great. My thing, I don't know if bioluminescent would be nice because you'd be your own nightlight. But what if you couldn't control it and you glowed at night and you basically made yourself incapable of going to sleep? That would suck. That's more like a Black Mirror take on bioluminescence. Once you crack the seal on covering Gothics, I've got a video of hers downloaded that she privated on all her socials because the backlash was so bad. Really? Okay. I'll take a look at those and then we'll figure out how I can get a look at that. How old is that one, JL? Nicholas says they'll be opposed to transhumanism until they think it will lead to cat girls. Well, yeah, they'll be like, it's furries for real. And then it'll be just like the image that Nicola sent to my Discord. Scowling, but, tumescent. Bioluminescence would suck if you were trying to stealth, though. I mean, it would, but... All right, folks. I think with that, I'm going to wrap it up. It's almost been 90 minutes, so I'll drop this off. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for keeping things lively. Any comments or anything, email me, jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. For anybody who is trans allied, or anything like that, want to yell at me over on the Transpositions Discord, if you're on there. Check with Stephanie if you're interested in checking out their resources on that Discord channel. And I will be back probably. I would like to see I'll be back in the middle of the week, but I'm not sure what's going to be happening. I've got time off starting Wednesday. I'm fortunate enough my employer recognizes June 19th as a national holiday, and so we get the day off. I'm taking holiday days after that, so I may be away from my place. So if I do a show on Saturday, I'll probably be doing a show Saturday covering Redefined Living with Wilberforce. He sent me some one particularly good video, actually, that the YouTube users clips that he sent me. There's a lot of content there of Redefined Living. If you don't know who Redefined Living is, imagine Darth Dawkins, only somehow more annoying. He's less overtly aggressive, but he's just as intellectually and conversationally dishonest. So we'll probably be covering that together next Saturday. Midweek, I'm going to have time off. I don't know if I'll be back for a show other than that. So the very latest, I will see you all next Saturday. I hope you guys have a great one. And let's see, less than a year, she goes after atheists. Really? Okay, I really want to see that one. I don't know if you can post the link. Can you DM me the link to watch it, or is it something that, and then she shut it down within a couple of weeks posting it. Ugh. That's rough. And she's covering atheists? Holy crap. Which Discord server? The one that Stephanie Helms is involved. It's Transpositions, I believe. It's let me pull it up here. Yes, the Transpositions newsroom. But Jail, if you downloaded that, if you've got that on, let's say if you've uploaded that private, I think you can just email me a link or text or DM me a link to where you've got it on your YouTube channel. If you share that out, I think I can access it that way, even if you're not making it public. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm really interested in watching that one. And yeah, the transpositions. So really good stuff. I'm hoping to get into some more of the Judith Butler book is on my list of things to read. I'm hoping to get that read over my vacation. So anyway, I will talk to you all later. Hopefully everybody has a great time and a good weekend. Stay cool. If you're experiencing part of this heat wave that's going on, I am going to spend some time with the folks and maybe do some grilling if it doesn't get too obnoxiously hot. So I will catch you all later. Again, comments, questions, criticisms, email me, jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. I'm on X. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on, what's the other one? Threads or Instagram, whatever it is. So check me out there and like and subscribe and do all that good stuff, or don't. And I will catch you all later. Take care, everybody. Bye. Let's try that again.